Okay, we are still journeying through Genesis, and today we've made it to chapter 28. We've skipped a little bit of stuff. Genesis 28, beginning at verse 10 through verse 19. So here's what's happened. You remember that last week, Jacob tricked his slightly older brother Esau, they're twins, tricked him out of inheriting the blessing that was promised to Abraham, so that it would pass through him, Jacob, instead of his slightly older brother, Esau. Well, Esau was a little slow on the uptake at first, but now he's mad. He's really mad. And he's trying to kill his brother Jacob for revenge, and so that he can get the birthright back himself. And so listen to what the Spirit might speak into your life in this reading from Genesis chapter 28, verses 10 through 19. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a stairway set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring, and your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose up early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head, and he set it up as a pillar, and he poured oil on top of it, and he called that place Bethel, house of God. And our second readings from Romans 8 begins at verse 12. This is Romans 8, beginning at verse 12 through 25. So then, brothers and sisters, we are obligated not to the flesh to live according to its desires. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you received a spirit of adoption. When we cry, Abba, Father, it is that very Spirit bearing witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ. If in fact we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but of the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself would be set free from its enslavement to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning together, as if it suffers together the pains of labor, and not the creation only, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what they have already seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Holy wisdom, holy word. Thanks be to God. I'm glad to see that we're choosing some of the newer hymns this summer as we pick our hymns. Oh, Jacob. I don't trust this guy, do you? Jacob? Jacob is a dreaming deceiver, and he awakes from his angelic dream, and the warm afterglow of that good dream still lingers with him. It's still sounding a certain note in his spirit, a serenity, a sense of well-being. Sometimes when you're really worried or when you're really tired, as Jacob surely was, running from his stronger, angry older brother, sometimes when you're really tired or scared, you have weird dreams, right? He dreamt that the spot where he was sleeping was a thin place, as they call them. A thin place in the veil that separates the tired old world from the world that ought to be, and that exists alongside the world we see, and in its folds and in its moments. He dreamed that the place where he was a portal into the very presence of God, a stairway to heaven. And as that peaceful dream faded with the morning light, it left him basking in a sense of new possibilities for himself and for the world. And so he said, "This is a great place. I love this place. This is an awesome place. This is the stairway to heaven, and I was sleeping here, and I didn't even know it. I didn't know there was anything spectacular about this place. A holy place." Have you ever felt that you were in a holy place in your life? Whether a literal place, like this place, or a figurative place. Perhaps amid the confusions and the fears of our turbulent times, you too have slipped into a very brief dream, and you've seen things differently for a moment, with a sense of peace, a sense of clarity, a sense of calm. And you too have found these holy places in the quiet of your life and in the world around you. There are so-called thin places where we draw near to God. Wake up, look around you today. Have you been sleeping on holy ground? Have you been asleep in a holy place in your life? Thin places, sacred places, places where the gossamer veil is sheer and translucent between the tired old world and the unseen better world that exists within it and beside it. Are there places in your life where you feel especially close to God, or to the holy, or to everything that's right and good, the way it ought to be? So I took a pilgrimage 2 summers ago, and somebody told me recently, you haven't talked about that much in your sermons. And so today we remedy that. I took a pilgrimage 2 summers ago on the St. Cuthbert Path through Scotland and into northern England. It goes through the Cheviot Hills, and I didn't know if they were Cheviot or Cheviot or what they were. I looked them up this morning. The Cheviot Hills in southern Scotland, it passes through those hills to what is called the Holy Island of Lindisfarne. Isn't that great? It sounds mythical, doesn't it? And the Holy Island of Lindisfarne is just off the northernmost tip of England's coast. And they call it Holy Island for short. This pathway, this Cuthbert Pilgrim Path, it follows the life of a guy I had never heard of named St. Cuthbert. And when Saint is your first name, that's pretty good, right? St. Cuthbert was an early monk in the Dark Ages who was to northern England, Northumbria, what Patrick was to Ireland. He kind of brought Christianity there, and he's a big legendary figure. Unlike Patrick, Cuthbert just wanted people to leave him alone. Patrick, he kind of liked the attention. But Cuthbert, he always just wanted to get away from people. They would follow him for his advice, for his prayers, for his counsel. They would make him a bishop. They would make him an abbot or an advisor to the king. All he wanted was an island where he could be alone and pray. And they just kept following him. Anyhow, this pilgrimage along Cuthbert's path, which follows his life, it's only 60 miles, 6-0. It's only 60 miles. We had 6 days to do it. That's 10 miles a day. It's not too bad. It was really very doable, especially because all of our luggage got loaded into the van and transported without us. Now, admittedly, this was a pilgrimage for clergy, and some of us weren't able to do 10 hilly miles a day, and so they would ride with the luggage to the next inn or guest house. But it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. Those treeless, rolling, deep green hills of southern Scotland, they just go on and on. And in the valleys between them, there are forests and quaint villages and grand manor houses and medieval churches. It rained almost every day, and I loved that. I'd rather be wet than hot. And the cloud cover made for nice walking in the summer. It was cool and pleasant. Now, I made friends with my fellow pilgrims, but I think I remained slightly aloof from the goings-on inside the group. There was a tiny bit of weirdness that started to develop between different individuals, and I wanted no part of that. One night, I stumbled down a darkened hallway looking for the bathroom, because in Britain, you don't have a bathroom in your bedroom. It's always down the hall. And I found a bunch of them sitting in some darkened room, their eyes glassy with alcohol, and they looked like they were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. And they looked at me guiltily. Hey, Brian. I didn't want to know what they were doing. I felt like I was their dad and I had caught them. But the beautiful part of that pilgrimage was the walking. Have you ever spent a whole day walking? And then do it for 6 days. When a whole day is spent walking and your only work for the day is walking, in the evening you really come back to yourself. You fall to sleep tired, and your thoughts are good and your dreams are usually good. Maybe that's what happened to Jacob on this day. The walking was soothing and hypnotic. And then the beauty of that place was just so good for the soul. I always hiked out ahead of the group, so much so that they sent me a picture of my own back with the hills in front of me, and they framed it and gave it to me. The last 3 miles of the pilgrimage were across the floor of the North Sea, because the holy island of Lindisfarne is a tidal island. It becomes a complete island twice a day when the tides come in. And not only is the path through the floor of the sea gone, but the road out to the island is gone too. It's submerged in water. We encountered real quicksand on the trek across the floor of the North Sea. And if you grew up watching the cowboy movies that I watched as a kid and Gilligan's Island, you kind of thought quicksand was going to play a bigger part in your life than it turned out to. Sadly, when we got to Holy Island, it was overrun with people. Tourists everywhere. It was noisy, it was crowded, it was expensive. It did not feel holy in the slightest, despite its lovely church and its big ruined monastery. But then, when the tides started to come in and the road started to disappear, everybody fled the island, and my fellow pilgrims and I had it all to ourselves. And it did indeed feel like what it was. It felt like a place made holy by centuries of prayer and pilgrimage, centuries of meditation, centuries of seeking God. It felt like what it was, a truly holy place. And I sat in a walled garden by the ocean and communed with God. Grateful for the journey, grateful for that place, grateful that we were taking a bus back to Edinburgh. Do you have sacred places in your life? Sacred in memory, maybe a place that you've only been to once, maybe a place that you revisit often. Do you have places in your life that you can go to and you know God will be waiting for you there? Not that God isn't in other places, but that those places are special to you. They're holy. There are a few places in the woods up north that I consider very special. And in Hawaii, they have sacred mountaintops. And in Cornwall, southwestern England, they have sacred wells or springs. Back in Cameroon, they had sacred groves where the ancestors were said to live, to sleep. When Jacob awoke from his haunting dream of spiritual beings coming and going, he looked around and said, "This place is special. I've never been to a place like this. There's something going on here that I have never seen anyplace else. This is the very house of God. And here I was sleeping in a holy place." What place in your life is holy? If you don't have a holy place, I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful to you to create one or to find one, to intentionally seek one out and make it your place. Well, here we are. We continue with our journey through the book of Genesis and through the Hebrew scriptures, and we find Jacob in a tight spot. You know, Esau was the firstborn twin. He's the simpler man of the two, and probably the kinder, actually, and probably the better man, quite honestly. But he was the firstborn, and so the special lineage of Abraham was supposed to go through him. But Jacob tricked him out of it for a bowl of stew last week, if you remember. Now, as you might know if you're a deep Bible nerd, Esau will end up forgiving his brother later. He will. He'll embrace him and welcome him. But we all know that forgiveness takes time. Sometimes it takes a very long time. Sometimes forgiveness is a cycle, and you keep coming back to unforgiveness before you finally get there. For now, Esau's mad, and Esau's big, and Jacob's scared. And so Jacob is running away from his brother Esau because Esau wants to kill him. He's a runaway. And when he lays him down to sleep on that first night, his head all dancing with anxiety and physical exhaustion from the journey and fear, and I really hope at least a little bit of guilt for what he did to his brother. When he lays down for sleep that night, he has a strange dream, as people often do when they're restless. He dreams that the spot where he's sleeping is where God sends the angels to and from heaven to the earth. It's some kind of a portal into God's very presence. And the spiritual beings are carrying messages and holy tasks to the earth or back to God. And he says, surely the presence of God is in this place in a special way. And so he builds in that place an altar with the very stone that he used as a pillow. Explain that to me. I don't know what that means. Must have been a really soft stone. Little does he know that his own grandfather Abraham built an altar in that very spot years earlier. And he names that place Bethel, house of God. And it remained a holy place for Judaism for many, many centuries to come. Have you not sometimes sensed that there are places in your life, maybe real physical places, maybe figurative places, seasons of life, like in the life of Jacob, times of transition or uncertainty, where God is somehow very near? Have you ever noticed that sometimes when God feels the furthest, God is actually the closest? Because God draws near to the brokenhearted. Maybe you find yourself in a place like that today. Perhaps like Jacob, you're in a holy place and you didn't even know it. You know, throughout the Hebrew scriptures and well into modern times, there's been this notion of thin places. We're talking about literal geographic places, thin places where the veil that separates time and eternity is almost see-through, and where you can really sense everything that ought to be, everything that Jesus called the kingdom, everything that Paul called the new creation. It's close. You're not quite there, but you can almost hear its song, singing alongside the noise of your life. The ancients believed that our workaday world of sunrise and sunset and planting and harvesting and working and resting was separated from the holier and better world that exists within it and around it by a veil that sometimes we get to cross. Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you." God's world of wonders and mysteries, it's all around us, inside the world we know, and we usually don't notice it. But there are a few places where the veil is thin between this world and the next. What are some of those places? Well, for Judaism, it was Bethel until it became Jerusalem. And later it was Rome for Christians, and Canterbury and Iona. You've all heard of Iona. And even Lindisfarne in its day. You know, just like baseball lovers will travel great distances to visit Fenway Park or Wrigley Field, so people of faith have always made journeys to the places that are important in the life of their faith. Still today, they flock to Mecca, to the Wailing Wall, the West Wall in Jerusalem, the Vatican, Lourdes. I even knew a conservative Presbyterian minister who dragged his poor wife to all the plain old churches in New England where Jonathan Edwards had preached, because he wanted to look upon every pulpit that had been occupied by the great Puritan preacher Jonathan Edwards. I hope they're still married. In Switzerland, when our kids were very little, I insisted on visiting the cathedral where John Calvin had his chair and where he preached. And I had baby Greta all wrapped up in my coat because it was March. Only her little face showed out. And she screamed like a tormented spirit all the way to the top of the tower of the cathedral and all the way back down, making me think maybe she had Roman Catholic tendencies. Is any one place more special than another? Is any one place more visited by God than other places? The great mystic Thomas Merton had a famous vision while he was crossing a street in Louisville, Kentucky, 4th and Walnut in downtown Louisville. And it was a vision of the transcendence of God and God's presence in all of humanity. And that vision was to haunt him for the rest of his life. But it did not take place in a special place. And yet, up to that point in Merton's wonderful writings, and they were still wonderful, up to that point, his spiritual writings were kind of about Jesus and me. It was about the inner life. It was about, I don't know, what you might call spiritual navel gazing, which I do too. But as he waited to cross the street that day, he looked around and he realized, I love all these people. I love all these people walking around shining like the sun, which is a quote from Jesus in Matthew. And it was a transformative experience for him that catapulted him from writing about just personal inner peace and more about world peace, more about the things that will benefit all of humanity. And it was born of a deeply personal experience of God on a street corner, surrounded by strangers. This occurred in 1958. In 1995, I knew a guy that got mugged there. Actually, very close to there. It probably did not feel sacred to him at that time. one drawback to being Protestant and to being rational, no matter what kind of Christian you are, is that we don't really believe that any one place is any more sacred than any other, do we? You don't have to cross yourself as you approach the chancel of the church here. We've said that all places are equally holy. God dwells in every place, but in doing that, somehow, we kind of washed the holiness away from everything, didn't we? Because if every place is holy, you're always on guard for the holy, and you're always standing in wonder, and you just can't do that. It would get tiring. And so, in a sense, by saying every place is equally holy, we took the holiness out of most places, kind of ironically. But you know, in ancient times, they liked to go onto their hilltops to worship God. That's what Acropolis means. It means high point in the city. They liked to build their temples on hilltops because they thought that that brought them physically closer to a god or to the gods who lived above the clouds. We don't really share that ancient worldview, that idea that heaven is a geographic place that we can get physically close to, and that it has doorways here in our world. We're not the Canterbury Pilgrims, the pilgrims from the Canterbury Tales. And most of us, we're not even mystics like Merton. We dwell in the here and now. But the experience of thin places, I think, captures all of us now and then. Thin places. The world around us is full of them. But like Jacob, sometimes it's hard to stay awake on holy ground. Sometimes we don't know that the Spirit is moving all around us, that there are angels going up and down. When have you been going about your day as usual, living your life, doing your stuff, when a rare burst of insight or peace or clarity came to you out of the blue, and it left you as quickly as it came, but it left you in its afterglow knowing that there is such a thing as calm, as peace, as clarity, as guidance, something that comes from outside of you occasionally and changes everything, assuring you that everything is okay no matter how bad things are, that there is a profound mystery just beyond the veil, and all that you say and do is somehow a means of participating in the life of God. Is one place holy because it's more inhabited by God than other places? Or are some places just so crowded with distractions that we can't see how holy they are? Just as we rarely see how holy the people around us are. All places are holy, but some just help us to get there faster. They give us the feels and the thoughts. The intersection of Moffat and Pin Oak is surely every bit as sacred as Merton's intersection of 4th and Walnut. All the living world is holy because it is God's habitation, if we open our hearts to the things that move around it and within it. And yet, we're human. We can't live in a constant state of wonder. We can't see the whole world as sacred because then we would just be wide-eyed all the time. It behooves us to pick a few spots where we experience God, real physical places in our lives, and to go there whenever we can. Go there when we need strength. Go there when we need God, which is pretty much all the time. We have relationships to places. You can tell by the fact that we roped off some of the back pews, and it's moved a lot of people forward. But we have our usual seats, and when I was sitting in the pews, I had mine. It just felt right to be in my usual spot. Somehow it felt like I was in God's presence there, I guess. We have relationships to places, to buildings, to houses, to rooms within those buildings. to forests, beaches, rivers, restaurants, coffee shops, stores. Some places evoke a sense of reverence or joy for us. Some places call to us because of something deep in our memory or deep in our character. And we return to such places with expectations, and those expectations might be what makes them feel holy to us. Consider the power of the house in which you raised your children, or the church in which you got baptized and confirmed and married, and where you attended the funerals of so many loved ones. The cabin where your family vacationed every summer. Each of these places has its own special power. Are some places made holy by God or by St. Cuthbert or some other person whose first name is Saint? Are places made holy? Or are they all holy and we just don't always see it? Do we make places holy by the things we do in them? I'm not sure, maybe all of the above. What places are holy to you? Wouldn't it be good to maybe have a special place in your home where you would reserve just for prayer, just for sacred reading, just for meditation? Maybe a chair, maybe a corner, maybe an area. Maybe if you like to walk, a part of your neighborhood, a tree in the park that is your sacred place. Wouldn't it be good to have a place? I would advise that we all ought to find our thin places because we need the strength that they will give us for these times. Let us find our thin places. Let us create our thin places if we need to. Let us spend more time there, in that place where the better world draws near. Amen.